Death haunted me. I've been a driver for a long time, and I've seen a lot of things in my long life, but after what I saw on that trip, I started praying before every trip. Not so long ago, I was just jumping behind the wheel without thinking about anything, and I didn't even have time to think about any prayer, but what happened to me completely changed my whole life. This is my most horrific story. Let me tell you right away that I never even thought about something unknown, and in general, the supernatural for me was beyond comprehension. But it happened so that I accidentally, not of my own volition, became the object of an incredible case. It happened while I was traveling through Arizona. The full moon illuminated the starry sky. The night was so bright that it was perfectly visible all the neighboring territories. I want to emphasize the fact that even dark nights I was never afraid of, because my truck has excellent low and high beam headlights. That night I was worried about only one thing, the fact that I had been driving for a very long time, and that a couple of cans of energy drinks that I had drunk since the evening had already started to give up its position. I wanted to sleep like crazy. The same thoughts kept popping up in my head that it was just a little bit left, and I would soon be there and go to bed. And in the morning I would go to the sauna and have a beer in the nearest bar. But one little thing, as it seemed at first, disturbed me. Within 3 hours I had not met a single car on my way. There were neither oncoming nor passing cars. Just as I remember now, I insinuated to myself that it was night, and many people were sleeping either at home or in roadside hotels. I turned on the radio and noticed with my side vision that something incomprehensible flashed in the mirror. Having lowered the glass, I looked out and was greatly frightened. A couple of meters from my car ran some creature, a little resembling a dog. But if we take into account the size, it was much bigger than an ordinary dog. This creature was just huge, bigger than a horse. In addition, the creature was traveling alongside the car at 60 miles per hour. It was unbelievable. I thought I had fallen asleep at the wheel, but realizing I was awake, I pressed down on the gas pedal. The speed increased another 10 miles per hour, but the creature kept up and kept moving next to my truck. Adrenaline began to rush through my blood. I couldn't believe this was really happening. A black dog of extraordinary size, which has fantastic speed, running next to a truck that is traveling at a mind-boggling speed. Could this even be possible? Soon what I was expecting happened. The lights of the town I needed to get to became visible around the corner. The little town that I wanted to see more than anything else at that moment. But I started to rejoice early, as it turned out, very early. Then something happened that shocked me. The creature had approached the cab of the truck and was now moving only 3 feet away from me. I raised the side window in horror and pushed more on the gas, but it was clear that speed was not an issue for this creature. A chill ran through my body as the horrible creature turned its head in my direction. I realized that it could see through me, see all of my fears. I could see the huge, bottomless eyes of what was clearly an intelligent being, aware and understanding, knowing a great deal. Even when the speed became more than 85 miles per hour, this beast was still running alongside my truck. It only lagged behind when I passed a road sign announcing that a town was coming up. As I entered town, I stopped my truck outside a convenience store, falling out of the cab with a cigarette. Tried to get my thoughts in order, to figure out what I'd seen just a few minutes ago after all. In the end, I put it down to fatigue. It couldn't have happened. It's time to rest. I'm already seeing things that are not and were not, and cannot be. Having finished my cigarette, and thinking that it was time to go to a psychiatrist, I went into the store, where I saw a pretty girl seller. She stood there smiling without making any movements. Then I realized that there was no one in the store except her, not even a security guard, and the girl was standing there without moving. And then another revelation came to me. I heard nothing when I pushed the door, nothing at all. It made no sound. My body trembled again. I stood in one place and looked around in a huff. Then, as if something had not short-circuited, I heard a girl's voice asking me if I was well. Almost immediately, drunken teenagers piled into the store for a new batch, and a security guard appeared from the back room. A few more people came in a little while later, and that's when I realized I was okay. I never fully understood what had happened to me, but I realized one thing. When a person just falls off his feet and has no strength, he is on the edge of the world. As soon as I got to bed, I immediately fell into it in a heap, and in the morning I realized that last night I had one foot in the other world. Something kept me alive and helped me get to my destination without incident. I now think that the dog-like creature was a messenger of death, waiting for me to make a mistake and crash to my death, for I was in such a state that it could have happened at any moment. Bigfoot spotting. Out in the vast expanse of northern Manitoba, where the roads stretch on for miles with little interruption, I found myself behind the wheel of a truck, navigating through the rugged terrain that defines this remote region. It's the kind of place where solitude is your constant companion, and encounters with other travelers are sparse at best. One particular road, tucked away in the northeast, stands out in my memory. It stretches on for what seems like an eternity, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the dense wilderness. It's flat and straight in places, almost unnervingly so, as if nature itself had laid down a path for those daring enough to traverse it. It was on this desolate stretch of road that I witnessed something that defied explanation. In the distance, a figure moved across the road, towering above anything I had ever encountered. It was massive, easily dwarfing the hood of my truck, but strangely slender, unlike the bulky silhouettes of moose or elk that are common sights in these parts. As quickly as it appeared, the enigmatic creature vanished into the thick undergrowth that lined the roadside. But its presence lingered, sending a shiver down my spine that I couldn't shake. I couldn't help but wonder what manner of being I had just witnessed. Days later, I overheard a conversation on the radio that sent a chill down my spine. A tow truck driver, much like myself, had encountered a similar creature along the same stretch of road. He spoke with a certainty that sent a shiver down my spine, describing the encounter in vivid detail. He was adamant that what he had seen was none other than Bigfoot itself. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I sought answers from those who were intimately familiar with these lands. An Aboriginal client of mine, a member of the local community, spoke of legends passed down through generations. According to him, the elders spoke of creatures like the one I had encountered, weaving them into the fabric of their mythology alongside the more familiar denizens of the wilderness. To this day, I remain haunted by that encounter. I may never know for certain what I saw on that lonely stretch of road, but one thing is clear. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. The man in black. My boyfriend. He's a trucker, you know. One of those guys who spends his nights cruising down the highways, delivering goods from one end of the country to the other. Midnight runs are his bread and butter, the rhythm of the road his lullaby. So there I was, chatting with him the other day, and I couldn't resist asking about the weirdest thing that ever happened to him on the job. And boy, did he have a tale to tell. Picture this, it's the dead of night, and he's looking for a spot to park his rig near a lonely truck stop. But something feels off. The place is shrouded in darkness, devoid of any signs of life. No lights, no other trucks, nothing. Now, most folks would take that as a sign to keep on driving, but not my boyfriend. Nah, he's tired, you see. So he figures, what the heck, and decides to call it a night. Next thing he knows, he's waking up to the glare of flashing lights behind him. 3 highway patrol cars, their presence looming large in the pre-dawn haze. Only, here's the kicker. He's not parked where he thought he was. Nope, he's about 15 miles down the road from that truck stop, his rig pulled over to the side like it's been abandoned. Now, here's where things get real spooky. He swears blind he was sleeping soundly in his camper all night long. But somehow he's ended up in a whole other zip code without even realizing it. And get this, the cops start spinning him a yarn about some guy in a black jumpsuit they spotted hightailing it away from his truck and into a nearby field. Naturally, they reckon it's some thief trying to make off with his rake, and who can blame him? But here's the kicker. The doors were still locked from the inside, and there ain't a scratch on the truck to suggest anyone tried to break in. Now you tell me, what in the heck kind of explanation is there for a story like that? My boyfriend might brush it off as some freak incident, but I'll tell you what, it's got me feeling mighty uneasy, that's for sure. Knock knock, who's there? My brother, bless his heart, used to be a trucker back in the day, cruising through the highways of America like it was second nature to him. He'd seen his fair share of weirdness on those roads, but this tale he shared with me not too long ago. Well, let's just say it takes the cake. So, picture this. It's the dead of night, somewhere in the heart of Pennsylvania, and my brother's making his way back to Jersey. He pulls over to the side of the road, figuring he'll catch a few hours of shut-eye behind a couple of other trailers already parked up. But as the early morning light starts to creep over the horizon, he's jolted awake by a sound that sends shivers down his spine. Someone's pounding on his truck door, loud enough to wake the dead. Quick as a whip, he leaps out of his sleeping compartment, clutching a bat like it's his only lifeline. Peeking out the window, he's met with silence. No sign of anyone. But just as he starts to relax, the banging starts up again, this time on the opposite side of the truck. Now you can imagine, my brother's getting mighty freaked out by this point. He peers out the other window, but there's nothing there except the stillness of the night. Before he can make sense of what's happening, the banging starts anew, this time coming from both sides of the truck simultaneously. It's like a thunderstorm, the noise so loud and heavy that it feels like the whole truck is shaking itself apart. With his heart pounding in his chest, my brother flings open both curtains, half expecting to come face to face with some ghostly specter. But there's nothing, just the empty road stretching out before him, bathed in the dim light of dawn. Without a second thought, he scrambles into the driver's seat, fires up the engine, and hits the gas. And wouldn't you know it, the other two trucks ahead of him do the exact same thing, like they've all just had the same spine-chilling encounter. Now, call it what you will, a trick of the mind, a figment of the imagination. But my brother swears blind that what he experienced that night was as real as the road beneath his wheels. And who am I to doubt him? After all, stranger things have happened out there on the open road. Crazy old lady. Back in 2017, during one of my routine hauls, I found myself at a Love's gas station just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in a place called Emerson. It was your typical pit stop, a chance to refuel the truck, grab a bite to eat, and maybe catch a few moments of rest before hitting the road again. I'd been parked there for about an hour, minding my own business, when a knock on my door pulled me from my reverie. Opening it, I found myself face to face with a woman who looked like she'd seen better days. Homeless, maybe in her 50s or 60s. She had this look about her, a sort of desperate air that set my instincts on edge. "I think we can help each other," she said, her words dripping with an unsettling kind of implication. Naturally, I was taken aback. It didn't take a genius to figure out what she was getting at, and I quickly shut her down, sent her on her way with a firm but polite refusal. But as I settled back into my routine, munching on fast food and idly scrolling through my phone, little did I know the strangeness was far from over. Suddenly, the door to my truck swung open, and before I knew it, I was face to face with a figure wearing the scream mask, the kind you see in those horror movies. It was the old lady from before, and this time, she wasn't taking no for an answer. Instinct kicked in and I pushed her away, slamming the door shut and locking it tight. I figured that was the end of it, but boy, was I wrong. As I got the truck ready to roll and pulled out onto the road, I started noticing something odd. Cars passing me were honking. Drivers were waving frantically and pointing towards the back end of my truck. Confused, I pulled over, and as I came to a stop, I watched in disbelief as someone leaped from the back of my truck and bolted into the distance. It was her, that same crazy lady. Turns out, She'd been clinging onto the back of my truck the whole time, hitching a ride like some kind of deranged stowaway. Now, I've seen my fair share of weirdness out on the road, but let me tell you, that was one experience I won't be forgetting anytime soon.